They're removing augment stats again. No. If you guys are trolling me, someone's gonna get banned. Someone's gonna get timed out. Hey folks, I'd like to talk to you today about removing augments from the end game and match history, and therefore from stats sites. And the last time we tried to remove augment stats from Runeterra Reforged, we saw some immediate positive towards TFT game health. Lobbies had a wider range of augments taken, unique compositions crafted, and innovative strategies appeared more frequently. However, due to the way we implemented the change, people could scrape match history, creating an unfair advantage. You can read about the last time we talked about it on Reddit. Since then, we've been monitoring the impact and are still unhappy with what stat sites do due to how players interact with TFT. Rather than experiment and explore the large amount of content, players rush to conclusions based on that data. In addition, we've seen on the competitive side that not every region has equal access to stats, which creates another competitive integrity issue. We saw at the Vegas Open that everyone plays without access. It led to the fantastic event with unique plays. And you remember Malaz learning to spell victory back when augment was not a high priority? Since then, we've kept all other mechanics mostly out of our match histories and APIs. We kept portals off there explicitly to ensure we didn't end up with a world where sites were saying exactly what best champs and augments were on each portal, each encounter, etc. Anomaly buffs and Into the Arcane are similarly not on match history for this very reason. So in the spirit of game health and competitive fairness, we'll take another stab at this and remove augments from match history, starting with the launch of Into the Arcane. Removing them from match history ensures there's no way to scrape everything to create stats and should lead to a more dynamic discussion around content of the set. We know some players won't be happy with this change. Woo! And we get that, but that does not change that this is the fairest thing to do for future competitions. Past that, and this change will also lead to better game health and enjoyment. Having tried this once before, we're pretty confident in our updated approach to the decision. All that said, we will monitor and change if it turns out we were wrong. Have fun and enjoy the launch of Into the Arcane and take it easy. Wow. They actually are doing it. Holy cow. They're actually banning augment stats. All right. I'm going to say one thing here to start things off. I'm going to turn this into the dramatic reading. I'm going to say one thing. I think this is a good thing. There are bad things about it. There's trade-offs that I don't think people want to make. And if you quit TFT, I understand it. But I will say, I'm going to say the first thing. I used to be pro stats. Back in set 9 when they actually banned stats, I was very much against it because I was like, I understand the exact argument of why stats should exist. The first is that it sucks to feel like you load up into a game and you look at the stats, and if some augments are legitimately like awful, you avoid throwing your entire game because you didn't understand that some augments were just literally unclickable, and it feels bad. The second is it feels like you don't want to necessarily be like, it feels like you can learn the game by yourself and you can dive into the stats and you don't have to jam a bunch of games in order to get a good feel of the set, and it feels like it helps you guide your way through, right? Some people want to load up Elden Ring and they want to have like a walkthrough guide and learn how to play it through without like dying 10,000 times. I'm just using extreme examples to try to help drive the point home. People like having guided experiences through games. And for some people, they even literally say this. Well, I understand this from a set health and longevity perspective, and True stats was one of my favorite parts of playing TFT. I've always been fascinated by numbers and stats in games, so I'm sad to see the side of the game go. There's a big portion of the players that I agree with it as well. I like looking at stats and reading and stuff. But the reality is, here's the reality. TFT, for a lot of players, have stopped being about playing the game, and it's about reading the numbers. You're not even playing the game anymore. There are so many players who legitimately, all they do is read the numbers and they make the decisions. They're not even playing TFT anymore. They're reading spreadsheets. They're just reading spreadsheets. And it gets even worse. And you might be thinking like, well, that's not how I use it. That's how the noobs use it. That doesn't take away from the point from that's how a lot of people do it. And more importantly, that's the perception of what the game has become. It's no longer about, well, I'm going to experiment and I want to try it. There's no more curiosity in TFT. There's just almost none, because it's almost like, well, if I look at this augment with this emblem, like I understand that this is like the optimal way to use it, and like now at this point, if you're not doing it, you're trolling. There's no more conversations about TFT. It's strictly about talking down to people who do understand stats and don't understand stats. And then for competitive players, here, get this. I'm actually gonna throw something out there. For the World Championships, are you guys aware that some players are allowed to look at stats and some aren't? Because if you are at home, they did not ban stats usage for the World Championship. So there were players who were literally looking at augment stats at Worlds. And there's players who are at LAN who aren't able to do that. You're talking about competitive integrity and tournaments. There's a giant gap of people who can and cannot look at that. And I complained directly to Riot. I was like, this shouldn't actually be a thing. And it's just one of those things where I guess they said they couldn't stop people from like doing it. So it's just like, they don't want to like, I specifically raised this issue. I think it's a huge issue. And now more competitive, like competitive fairness is a huge thing. Like I actually think this is a really big deal. Like how unfair is it that the Chinese players on LAN stage can't look at augment stats, but someone like Milk can? And it's you guys shouldn't be flaming Milk or anyone else who are stats. I'm using Milk because he doesn't mind getting that kind of aggression, but it is such a big issue competitively at the highest level. If you care about that, if you care about my channel, you care about that kind of content, it's something that like it just did not sit well with me for a long time, and I wanted to complain about it. So this is a good thing for the casual player base that loves to explore a game. It's good for the people who are engaged with the game. It's also good for the competitive scene. The trade-off is we're going to lose a lot of players that interact with TFT in a very number-based, data-informed, not data-driven way that makes it very interesting because they love to explore the game. They don't want to have study groups. They don't want to necessarily feel like they have to go to every tier list guide to figure out how to play the game. They want to learn the game themselves, and stats is a really good way to learn that. But I think this is a big step in the right direction. And I also take accountability for this. I literally suggested this to Mort last week. I don't think Riot did it because of me, but when Mort was at the co-stream last week, I said, Mort, I flipped my position. I totally felt like banning stats was wrong last time, but if you guys chose to ban stats, like remove augments from match history, I would not be mad. So if this goes terrible, you guys can blame me. I didn't snitch. I'm just saying that I would be okay with it. And guess what? I'm not the only person that thinks this way. You know who also thinks this way? Soju has been saying that he thinks stats have ruined a lot of the game for him. Setsuko has been saying that he feels like stats have ruined the game for him. Like, there's a lot of people that actually have advocated that, like, the game is becoming so optimized, so soft, so numbers, so like, increasingly pushed one side that it feels like TFT is no longer fun. It's about, like, about whether or not you know the optimal line or don't. It's just a straight up knowledge check. And we're going to lose players from this, but I think that the players that stay are going to be really happy. That's my take on it. And if I'm wrong, if I'm deeply wrong, I'll walk it back. I'll face the music. If you guys laugh at me, that's totally fine. And also, I will say one thing that if you guys are completely lost because you're like, I don't know what augments to pick, there's this really great website which actually might even recommend things like augments and what to pick that might be good for the composition. And it might help you figure things out in a time where you may be lost and need actual direction and guidance. Don't worry. TFT Academy tier list. Wow. Presenting the latest meta tier list comps tier list for set 13, meticulously curated by our teamfight tactics experts, Dish Soap, the world champion, and Frodan challenger caster. Oh, wow, my God. Optimization is fun. It is, but optimization can also kill fun. The process, what you're confusing is the process of optimization oftentimes is more fun than playing in an optimized state. You guys know how I'm right, because you guys hate balanced metas if they last for more than 2 weeks. If there's a balanced meta that's optimized, it's even if the set is fun, you guys think it's boring. You guys think it's boring. You guys don't like end states of optimization. You like getting to that point. And what this does is it slows it down. So theoretically, it elongates the process of which you enjoy the set. Even when set 10, or sorry, people use set 10 as a balance state. It's not true. But even in like, even in balance states in the past, I think set 11 had this as well, where they're like, it's the same patch over and over and over and over. Like, I want balance thrashing. It's because you guys optimize it too fast. So hopefully what this does is gives us that breathing room that we're looking for to actually enjoy TFT longer than just like a few days per patch, guys. I think it'll be really interesting. Now, that being said, I think a lot of us are about to get much worse at the game. Myself included. I think I'm about to, one thing you're gonna have to do, let's say if you like this change, one thing you have to understand is your ego is about to get bruised a lot. You might be a Masters player, you might be a GM player, you might be a Challenger player, and you might be hard stuck like 3 divisions below your actual rank because you were too dependent on stats, but that's okay. That's okay because the journey, it's about the journey, not the destination. I'm saying that in case I get hard stuck this set. Oh God, it's not going to be good. Fundamental TFT is back on the menu. Fundamentals TFT. Is TFT Academy going to expand the augment priority info? Probably not. Because we don't want it to be like a 15-page thing. But what we'll do is augment priority should help you give intuitive feel of things. Won't the game still get figured out super fast? It just won't be available to everyone. Only those who have more time to play. That's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. Like you're telling me that people who play the game more are going to be better at the game. Like people who play the game more are going to be better at the game. Is that the argument I'm hearing? People are like, well, in tournament, I don't want to feel like people just played the game more than me. So yeah, like I don't understand. Now I understand if you're saying like if in order to be at like a competitive level, you have to know life the game. That argument I feel like could be made for the competitive casual player, right? Like the people who have a job. Some people in chat here have a job. And you're like, I want to compete in TFT, but I don't have time to invest more than a few hours a day. And that's a lot. And I want to feel like I can compete against the challenger players. You still can, but you no longer have stats to close the gap. You have to sharpen your skills, and you have to like, it doesn't mean you can't high roll. It just means that the skill gap, how many of you guys are here complaining that the skill gap in TFT is non-existent? It's about to widen a lot. Because the players who have strong intuitive sense that can't invest as much time are still going to be able to do well. You guys think Mismatch Socks is not going to be able to compete when he dedicates time to TFT? He will. He will. But like, there's some players who honestly got carried by augments. They got carried by augment stats. They'll just like make the right choices only because they literally loaded the Explorer. They typed in Callista, Rakan, 5 Fairy, Zillion. And then they're like, oh, shit, it turns out that Inspiring Epitaph is the best combat augment for this thing, right? Like, they would not have known that otherwise. They would have just, like, they would have made many mistakes across that. What do you mean with stats? Basically, there's a bunch of augments have been optimized so much in TFT that people purely look at average placement and win rate and top 4 rate for choosing their augments instead of thinking about whether or not it's good for their spot. RIP America's Next World. You guys are a region of copy pasta stats. Yeah, you're not wrong. And they may never win a world championship again.